What's up, guys? Again, I'm back for another video, and like I said, this video is my last video, excuse me. I said it was going to be a three-part video, or not really a three-part video, but multiple sections. And today's fragrance we're going to be talking about is another throwback fragrance, and then this will be the last throwback fragrance I actually have, if I can recall on the top of my mind, that I'm actually going to be reviewing for a little while, because the rest of them were modern releases. But anyway, this one is none other, and this is actually one of my favorite designer fragrances, yet it's such a cheap one, and I recommend getting this one because it's not only is it cheap, but it's a great fragrance, and it doesn't even smell cheap in my opinion, personally, but everyone has their own opinions. But this one is none other than Drakkar Noir. This is a great throwback fragrance from the 80s. Would love to get my hands on a vintage bottle of this one, but unfortunately the prices are way too ridiculous for a vintage bottle. But for what it is, the modern release is still very good, and I love the packaging on it. It's a little bit textured, if you can see. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up with this lighting, but it's a little bit textured here. Not much of it here. It's like dotted almost. And of course it says Drakkar Noir, or a toilet vaporizer. A lot of information that's useless on the back. No one really reads that. And on the bottom, well, of course it says Guy Laroche, because this is the creator of Drakkar Noir, Guy Laroche. So our batch code we have here is 38T100F. So yeah, pick this one up at Walmart. You can really find this one anywhere, pretty much today. It's a pain in the butt to get from Walmart though, because the one thing I don't like about Walmart is that it's just generally they have a glass case there, so you have to get somebody to go and get it and open up the case so you can get the fragrance out, and then they wrap the damn thing in a hard plastic container, so it's hard to get into, but you can get them from Walmart. This is a 100 ml, by the way, and here's the bottle. It's slick, love it. It's old school, you know, it looks 80s, this bottle. Plastic cap, so that is cheap. Glass bottle, of course. Like I said, 100 ml. Now, the vintage bottles were also made by Cosmere, just like you saw in my Polo Green video. That's a Cosmere. At least my vintage bottle is. So, mind you, the vintage bottles are going to smell slightly different from the new ones. Clicks into place like normal. It's not magnetic because it's plastic. But this fragrance is gorgeous. I really love this one. If I was to imagine what this fragrance smells like, and I'm going to do a spray on my wrist here. I already have some here, but it's in the dry down. Let's get the opening here. So I'm going to reapply over that. I like to do small squirts of this one. I don't like to do full atomizer sprays, personally. Man, is that beautiful, that scent. So that's Drakkar Noir, like I said. So, let's see. On the opening, I'm hit with a lot of lavender in here, and then there's lemon in here too behind it. That gives it some citrus freshness to this one. It really gives it a good bit of freshness into it. At least on the opening it is. This one darkens up on my skin very nicely. It's also very sporty. So what I was going to get into is why I say, what do I imagine this one as? Or what I imagine the situation wearing this one, it kind of reminds me. It's a nostalgic scent, even though I'm not from the 80s. You know, I wasn't born in the 80s. I'm only 19. So I'm still very young. But what I can imagine is, like, it almost reminds me of, like, something I would smell in a high school locker room after the dudes got out of the shower and they, like, smell like this stuff. That's what I imagine this. It's a very sporty smelling. But if I recall correctly from seeing other online forums and stuff, this stuff was very popular in the 80s during the clubbing situations. A lot of men wore this to the clubs when they were going out. You know, if they were going to be going to a bar or just a nightclub or something in general. This was a very popular fragrance. And Drakkar Noir, if I read correctly, another thing, Drakkar Noir means basically Viking ship or long black ship, something like that around those lines. It's French, so I wouldn't know. I don't speak French. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of what I imagine. It's sporty, but it's different. It's sporty on the opening, and then it darkens up on my skin pretty nicely. It's sweet and very dark. I don't know what else. There's a lot of notes to this fragrance, and it's very well blended, so I can't really pick out all these notes in here. It's just so well blended. The opening, though, I do pick up the lavender, I pick up the lemon, I do pick up some leather here in the dry down. And it's a very sweet leather. There might be some amber to this one as well, I don't really know. I'm trying to think of like some of these fragrance notes that are in here. I haven't researched the fragrance notes in this fragrance in forever. You know, I first bought this fragrance a few years ago. It was one of my first fragrances, and that's why it's just so, I guess, personal and intimate to me, because it was one of my first fragrances. It's what started this journey for me. And, well, Acqua di Gio, the original one, was my first, and then this one was kind of with it too as well, because I had this one and Acqua di Gio. So yeah, I still keep that lavender in here, but it sticks around mostly in the opening, within the first hour or so. And then of course that leather comes in here as well. They're trying to think of some of the other notes. There might be some cedar in here as well. There's no pine in this well, no, there is pine. It's very hard to detect. That's based off of what I'm reading off of Fragrantica, and it's in the base, so it's in the very bottom of the fragrance, towards the end when you get to that skin scent. But it's a very dark fragrance. This one I like to wear when I drink. Personally, this is mostly a fall and winter scent, so I like to rock this with my leather jacket. It just matches with it. I love it. So yeah, I mean, really, honestly, if you're wanting something sporty but you want something old school, then you would want to go for Drakkar Noir personally. It's sporty, but it's also dark, and it gets very dark on my skin, actually. Yet it keeps some sweetness to it as well, so yeah. And it still retains some of that freshness in the opening. So, yeah. Now, if I was to, like, you know, rate the fragrance on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it about a 9.5. And the reason why I say not a 10, because 9.5 is close to 10, is the issues with longevity. Longevity isn't so great with this one. I don't know how vintage bottles were back in the day. I thought I've heard that vintage bottles back in the day, they lasted a long time. They were like truly powerhouse fragrances. Now it's not so much, you know, it's that has ended years ago, but I heard back in the 80s and 90s that this fragrance had monstrous longevity and monstrous projection. The projection is pretty mild on here. It's not too strong, but it's not very necessarily light. It does become a skin scent pretty quickly, though. Like, obviously, towards the end. And I get about maybe 2 hours, honestly, of longevity with this fragrance. I hate to say it, but it just doesn't last on my skin. And I've heard the issues with many other people. It's just been reformulated over the years, which is a shame. The scent is absolutely gorgeous, but I wish it would last long on skin, but you could always reapply. But like I said, you're going to burn through a bottle quickly. The good thing about it, though, is that this fragrance is cheap. So if you need to buy another bottle, you're not going to be breaking the bank when trying to get this one. So I absolutely love it. It's a staple to every man's collection. If you're going to have a fragrance collection, you need to own Drakkar Noir. But this one gets crapped on a lot. That's the only issue. It's like the subject to every joke in the book, you know. Because, yeah, it's cheap. It's almost sleazy today, in a sense. It's always a joking matter with this fragrance, and it kind of gets crapped on today, but I truly love it. And if Jensens is watching this, unlikely he is, but I know Jensens is a fan of this one, and he kind of got me into this fragrance, actually. I watched his video on Drakkar, and that's what kind of got me into this fragrance. I wanted to try it, and I actually tried it, and I really enjoyed it. I owned a clone of this one. It was owned by Belcom by Classic Match, and I actually accidentally bought that bottle. I was trying to get another one from them, and this was, of course, when I was on a budget, so I didn't buy designer fragrances back then, and also I wasn't into fragrances back then, but I actually accidentally bought that clone, and I smelled it, and I loved it, and it actually smelled a lot like this one. So if you're wanting a cheaper alternative, go for it. It's not going to be identical, but it's very close to it. And then I smelled it. I found out, oh, this is a clone of Drakkar Noir. I researched Drakkar Noir on YouTube, came across Jensens' video on it, and here I am today. Of course, this isn't my first bottle. This is about my second or third bottle, I think. So, I love it. I will always own a bottle of Drakkar Noir in my collection, and I think every guy should try it, definitely. If you don't want to blind buy it, don't blind buy it. Maybe sample it if you can. But definitely check it out, dude. It's great fragrance. So, other than that, y'all have a good one. I have more videos coming out soon, so stay tuned.